crime is serious not simply because of the number of people who were killed, overwhelmingly black homicides perpetrated by black criminals. But you have youth who live in those neighborhoods. And as I mentioned before, it leads them to become tough. For younger people, there's a certain amount of trauma living in neighborhoods where you hear gunshots, and that affects them. So that there's a wide sweep of how living in neighborhoods with high gun violence affects people overall, youth overall. And so something has to be done about it. And I think, there are a number of people, Thomas Abbott comes to mind in particular, who have this sort of targeted deterrence where police quickly are able to learn who are the most at-risk kids.
Yeah.
And they can confront those kids and give them a choice of going into programs, and we'll give you resources. And
they
if
have
you
meetings
don't,
with them. They have meetings. They tell them, we know who you are.
yes.
We know where you live. We know what you're doing.
Well, they have the meetings with their family.
Yeah.
Often.
To bring in the social reinforcement. And you got a choice. You can keep doing what you're doing, in which case there's one path, or, you can try to straighten it out.
Now, the problem is you now have a whole host of DAs who take away the stick. In other words, they're all in favor of the carrot. We'll give you this, we'll give you that, to one degree or another, and there's some disagreement on how you do that. But they take away the stick by decriminalizing actions. You have this situation in Chicago, right, where there was a rampage in the downtown, and the incoming mayor says, well, we can't demonize those kids. We have to give them social programs. Yeah, they're destroying property. They're rampaging. And what he's talking about is they're the victims. We have to help them. So if you have, that kind of a leadership, you have no stick to hold over people. And bail reform in New York has become like that, where this kind of focused deterrence that has been effective in a number of cities is limited in its reach. You can't change neighborhoods until you get rid of this gun violence. And liberals have no solution for communities. They have little sort of programs to try to enable people to move out, or people to move out.
Your solution is focused deterrence?
I think that's one of them. You have to have the police directly involved. They have to work with social workers. They have to work with community groups that are violence disruptors. There are a number of things that have to be coordinated besides this finding the kids and having talks. There are some effective community groups that are violence disruptors. They're in the community. They can work with these kids to some degree, and young adults. It's not just kids. It's people in their late 20s.
Yeah.
But they have to be coordinated with the police, as it is with social workers. I studied a number of cities where it was incredibly effective. Newark is one of them. St. Paul, Minneapolis is another. St. Petersburg.
I detect. Excuse me for interrupting you, Bob, but I just want to get this on the record. I see a commonality. You said, don't substitute for the family, get into the family. That was about family, about child rearing, about women with children. And you're saying also here, don't just, you need a stick, but it's not just the stick. It's about relationships. It's about getting through to people. And it's about mobilizing communal resources, complementary with public resources in an effective way. I like that very much. Who is listening to this kind of talk? Because it doesn't sound like the Biden administration program, and it damn sure doesn't sound like Kevin McCarthy or Donald Trump's program.
Well, there
Is it
you
Eric
go.
Adams? Is it Eric Adams's program?
Well, it is, but he is getting incredible pushback from from the city council in New York, from the state representative, even to get a marginal adjustment to this outrageous bail reform that they put through, where it's the one state in the union, New York, where judges have zero discretion over whether somebody should get bail.
They
Zero
have to let
discretion.
them go.
That's right. They have to let them out without bail for a whole ring of charges against them. So it's the only state in the union, zero discretion of the judges. So you have a situation where in Rikers Island, where people are held on bail, more than 80% of the people who are held on bail are on violent felonies. Because that you can't avoid. You can't just let them out on the street if it's a violent felony. But if it's a non-violent felony, like you rob cars, you shoplift, you do all kinds of things that are nonviolent, you can now get out.
Well, Bob, there is another side, to the bail reform debate. I don't want to rehearse it here just to say people have not been convicted of a crime and the disproportionate impact on low-income people of having to post a cash bond before
I
you can
agree
get
with
out.
you. And 10 years ago, half of the people in Rikers awaiting trial because they couldn't meet bail, half of the people were there for misdemeanors. That was outrageous. But that was ended even before this current bail reform. But you're right that historically it has been unfair to poor people, outrageously unfair. But now it's the reverse.